Pakistan is unwilling to learn. The question of Pakistan is again before us after the Pahalgam attack in Kashmir. 28 innocent tourists marked for their religion, sidelined and then killed. Some shot on point blank range. This is not about Kashmir. This is not about the tourism industry. This is not about the economy of Kashmir or 370 or Article 35. No. This is about a group of tourists who were in Pahalgam celebrating their vacation, celebrating with their families, and then 4 terrorists come, mark them for their religion, and then kill them. For those who say that terrorism has no religion, a question is before them as well. If terrorism has no religion, why were these 28 innocent tourists marked for their religion? The question of Pakistan keeps coming back to haunt us. In the last 10 years, we've seen it after Pathankot, after Uri, after Pulwama in 2019, and now after Pahalgam. We have fought 4 wars with Pakistan in 1947-48 when they invaded Kashmir, in 65, in 71 it led to the creation of Bangladesh, in 1999 as well, which can be termed as the political backstabbing of Atal Bihari Vajpayee. Pakistan is unwilling to learn. It lives with the single objective of the annihilation of India. The young children there are taught to hate India. The population there is told that you may starve to death, you may not have a grain to eat, but the annihilation of India is important. That is the single-minded objective they work with. And this question will keep coming back to us, if not every few years, once in a decade. And again, the question is before us. Now, some will say that the answer to Pakistan lies in the military options. Some might exaggerate and say nuclear weapons are an option. But after 45 years of the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union, there is one critical lesson the world has learned. Nuclear weapons, however tempting they might sound to the opposite country, they are never put in use, and rightfully so, for the sake of humanity, for the sake of the world. Because it's not about one nuclear weapon, it's about the nuclear weapons that follow the first nuclear weapon. So between India and Pakistan, Pakistan's nuclear bluff has been called out a number of times, most recently after the Pulwama attack in 2019. Until 2014, Pakistan's argument or Pakistan's weak defense was that we have nuclear weapons, and if India escalates matter, it can break into a nuclear war which won't end well for both the countries. But that bluff has been called out. But the way the modern world is, the way countries are invested in India, be it China, be it the United States, be it Europe, everyone doesn't want to see a nuclear war or even a conventional war. This is why the non-military options become very, very important. Now, some of you might say there is also the option of Balochistan. Why aren't we ensuring the disintegration of Pakistan? Again, these are military options. These work the way the military wants them to work, the government wants them to work, and most of these plans are never public. So today, we'll be taking on the non-military options for discussion in the wake of the Pahalgam attack in Kashmir. Now, let's talk about the first non-military option that the government has already executed. Putting the Indus Waters Treaty in abeyance, which means a temporary suspension. Now, this does not mean the end of Indus Waters Treaty, though it might be a step towards that direction. It means now the government of India, if it wills to, it can actually start building on the rivers which are going to Pakistan. Now, as per the treaty, the waters of Jhelum, Chenab and Indus with minimal storage in India are flowing off to Pakistan, while the waters of the Ravi, the Beas and the Sutlej are consumed in India significantly. But the western rivers, the Indus River, which originates near the Lake Mansarovar in Tibet, Chenab, which originates near the Lahaul-Spiti Valley in Himachal Pradesh, and Jhelum, which originates in the Pir Panjal range near the Anantnag district of Jammu and Kashmir. These are the rivers that we're going to talk about today. Now, the water flowing through these rivers is very, very important. Indus River, 90 MAF. Chenab and Jhelum, 25 MAF, which is million acre feet, flowing every year to Pakistan. Now, before we extend this discussion, it's important for you to understand what MAF or million acre feet means. Think of every single person in the world holding 200 water bottles, each with a capacity of 750 ml. That's 1 MAF. Think of Delhi. Think of its area, 1400 odd square kilometers. Think of a city thrice the area of Delhi. Now sink that city with an area of around 4,000 square kilometers to a depth of 1 feet or 30 centimeters. That's 1 MAF. Every year, 135 MAF of water flows from Indus, Chenab and Jhelum into Pakistan. That's 28,000 bottles in the hand of every single person in the world with 750 ml capacity. That's how much water we are allowing into Pakistan. That's our generosity. That's the Indus Waters Treaty for you. And the Modi government finally wants to put a full stop on all this. Now we must understand 135 MAF is no small quantity of water. It's not tap water that can just be switched off at the whims and fancies of one policy. If you look at the Bhakra Nangal Dam, for instance, an absolute gigantic structure. The reservoir is very, very beautiful. It's located on the Punjab-Himachal Pradesh border that stores 8 MAF of water as per official records. So you need 20 structures like the Gobind Sagar Reservoir to hold the water that flows every year into Pakistan from these 3 rivers. Now, is that feasible? From an infrastructure point of view, maybe. But from a land acquisition problem, it's a real challenge. In Ladakh, you're looking at the Indus, and there's your first big problem. If you start building on Indus, China will always have the option to release excess of water in the Indus, and that will jeopardize the operations downstream. That's the first vulnerability India will have to encounter. And therefore, for the starting phase, for the first 10 years, it makes sense that India starts diverting water away from the Chenab River and the Jhelum River, which originate in Jammu and Himachal Pradesh. Now, when I'm talking about diverting water away from the Chenab and Jhelum, we have to talk about the imminent water crisis in some of our states, namely Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh and Delhi. In MAF terms, the water deficit annually for Punjab is around 8.96 MAF. For Haryana, it's 1.69 MAF. For Rajasthan, it's 3.56 MAF. That's the deficit. The extraction is 164% for Punjab. That is, they have 100 units of water available, but they are extracting 164 units. For Haryana, that's 134%. For Rajasthan, that's 150%. So we already have an incentive to divert water away from Jhelum and Chenab in the next 10 years for the water crisis that is imminent in the Punjab, Haryana region and in the Gangetic Plain in Uttar Pradesh and in the desert region of Rajasthan. Even in Delhi, which currently has a population of around 2 to 3 crore people, it's seeing a stress on its water resources, and we do not want Delhi to end up in a situation, say like Bengaluru, where the groundwater has really depleted. So we have to factor in the requirements of all these regions, especially Punjab, Haryana, Delhi, Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, northern Gujarat, in the next 20, 30, 40 years. And this is where the idea of the Six Canal Project really finds its foundation. Now, before some of you accuse me of building castles in the air, accuse me of dictating empty rhetoric, wishful thinking, please understand this has already been done in China before. The South-North Water Transfer Project does exactly that. The idea in the 1950s amongst the Chinese policy makers, starting with Mao Zedong, was quite simple. We have a surplus of water in south of China, we have a scarcity of water in the northern part of China, so why don't we create a canal network that moves the water from south to north? And this is how the South-North Water Transfer Project was started. 36 MAF worth of water being moved annually across a canal network with a length of 3,000 kilometers. It's already been done. Interestingly, even though the northern western part of China only hosts around 6 to 10% of the entire population, the Chinese felt the importance of building this canal network. The elevation was also not on their side because they were going from a lower elevation to a higher elevation. In the case of India, if you're looking to divert water away from Jhelum and Chenab towards Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh and Delhi, the elevation is on your side, the gravity is on your side. Geography does not become a challenge because you're trespassing or rather bypassing the Shivaliks, the Himalayan region in Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand. So if the Chinese could go from a lower elevation to a higher elevation, No reason why India can't go from a higher elevation to a lower elevation to cater to its future water needs. Now, the Chinese had their scarcity before them. Our scarcity may not be that obvious to our eyes right now. We might be thinking, oh, there's a surplus of water in Haryana, in Punjab, even in Uttar Pradesh for that matter. So why do we need this canal network? But this is not about thinking for today. This is not about thinking for 2025. This is about thinking for 2035. This is about thinking for 2045, 55, 65, 50 years ahead. Something that we have lacked as a characteristic as a nation. So if you think of a canal, how about a canal from the Chenab River to Rajasthan? You start somewhere in Akhnur, move to Pathankot, Amritsar, Bathinda, Sirsa, Hanumangarh, and finally to Bikaner. Of course, once it gets to Rajasthan, sky is the limit. You can really extend it anywhere based on the requirements. You can take it to northern Gujarat. But the bottom line here is, if you start envisioning this idea, you have to have your canal network go to Uttar Pradesh and Rajasthan. Think of another canal starting from the Jhelum River, somewhere in the Jammu region, goes to Pathankot, Jalandhar, Ludhiana, Ambala, Kurukshetra, Sri Ganganagar, and finally to Bikaner. You look at the canal from Chenab to Uttar Pradesh. It starts again somewhere in the Jammu region, goes to Pathankot, Bathinda, Sirsa, Hisar, Meerut, and finally Agra. Now, these are not rigid locations. These are not rigid ideas. Oh, the canal really needs to go through these routes only. But these are tentative locations. These are the areas you really need to cater to in the future. Think of another canal to Uttar Pradesh. Jammu, Pathankot, Jalandhar, Ambala, Kurukshetra, Saharanpur, Meerut. You're looking at the western UP region right now, which is again high on cultivation of sugarcane. You look at another canal to Rajasthan, which caters from Akhnur to Gurdaspur, Taran Taran, Firozpur, Abohar, and Ganganagar. And finally, another canal to Rajasthan, which starts somewhere in Jammu, goes through Hoshiarpur, Fagwada, Chandigarh, Mohali, Rohtak, Fatehabad, Hanumangarh, and finally to Churu. Now, these are tentative routes. To emphasize these cities, my point is that these are the areas that would really require water in the future. The Chinese built their canal network thinking that the rivers in the northern part of China cannot sustain the population there. We have to think of the economic decisions we have to take in the future. For instance, NCR would be a $1 trillion economy zone. Haryana already is in the top 7 states when it comes to per capita economy. So these states will have high water requirements in the future for their industry, for agri-economy, for cultivation, things like that. So why can't we, instead of showering that generosity to Pakistan through 135 MAF worth of water, build a 6 canal network which will divert around 28 to 36 MAF worth of water, similar to what the South-North Water Transfer Project in China does, cutting down Pakistan's supply by 25%, but addressing the water deficiency needs in the 5 states by 75%. Think about this. You cut down supply to Pakistan by 25% just by diverting water from the Jhelum and the Chenab River, but you're addressing deficiency of water for the next 50 years in 5 critical states by 75%. From a mathematical point of view, that's a good deal. Now let's come to the business end of this discussion. What are the consequences for Pakistan if India decides to cut down the supply from the 3 rivers, 135 MAF, by 25%? If it decides to divert water away from Jhelum and Chenab through Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, and Delhi. Well, first things first, the Mangla Dam in Pakistan would be severely hit. Its power generation capacity would be hit. Now, this dam is essential to the Punjab region of Pakistan, one of the richest regions in the country. The agri economy will suffer, the industry will suffer, whatever little industry they have will suffer, and more importantly, the electricity inflation would be an obvious outcome. Number 2, your states which have a water problem incoming, they'll be shielded by this diversion. Look at Punjab. The groundwater resources are almost gone. Rice cultivation is almost impossible. The SYL, the Sutlej Yamuna link, is a politically contentious issue that is waiting to be blown up by the anti-India forces. All of it would be addressed with this diversion project. Point number 3, it's a boost to the local economy as well. For those who've been to Haryana, those who've been to Punjab will understand that the areas around canal, while not very developed from a tourism point of view, do attract a certain audience, do attract a certain crowd on a hot summer day. And so you can start thinking of a Sabarmati riverfront like tourism being developed in these regions across these states. It can be a boost. It can be a boost to the local manufacturing, local industry as well. Think about the industries that can benefit from a surplus supply of water, especially with respect to vertical farming, with respect to textiles. Therefore, sky's the limit here. The industry has a lot to gain. Once it gets to Uttar Pradesh and Rajasthan, point number 4, sky's the limit. Some people on my Twitter timeline were talking about a national water grid. What if we can take the water to northern Gujarat? What if we can extend it to eastern Maharashtra? What if we can take it to Madhya Pradesh? Absolutely, why not? Why can't you start thinking about a national water grid, or at least a North India water grid when it comes to the diversion of water from Jhelum and Chenab? You look at the logistics also. Now, this is where a potential secretly lies. If you are going to use your canals for micro logistics, for logistics at a lower scale, complement them with the dedicated freight corridors and the highway networks that already exist, can there be a possibility of using this canal network for strategic and logistic purposes as well? Number 4, importantly and very, very importantly, people will bring up the cost. People will say, oh, look, this is a very pricey undertaking with no utility. Absolutely not. Across the next 10 years, this will cost the government around 5 to 7 lakh crore rupees. To put things in perspective, the annual capex from the last 3 years is 10 lakh crore rupees. So we are talking about spending 50,000 to 70,000 crore rupees annually of the 11 to 12 lakh crore capex. That can be done. Capex, the money is not a problem. What is interesting, however, is how that money will be spent, how that money can help states increase their local economy, increase their state GDP, increase or rather decrease their debt. That is how you have to imagine it. Also, you have to look at China. China is already planning a lot of misadventures in the Brahmaputra. A lot of people had this question that tomorrow, if you start diverting water from Jhelum and Chenab, what stops the Chinese from building on Brahmaputra? Well, the Chinese are already building. This is a reality we have to accustom ourselves with. The Chinese are already attempting dams and other storage structures in Brahmaputra in the Chinese region. So there is nothing that we can do to stop them because it's their country, their land. But that shouldn't deter us. That shouldn't stop us from catering to our national interests first. That's the bottom line. Now, everyone, when it comes to an infrastructural undertaking, especially one this long, which will take at least 10 to 12 years to sort of fructify, everyone asks, what about the political stability of India? What about the political stability in the states? What about the political stability in the center? This Six Canal River project, if it actually starts functioning, it will forever make the canal policy supersede our foreign policy with respect to Pakistan. Think about this. Which party would be daring enough to tell the 5 states of Delhi, Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, Punjab and Haryana combined together with around 130 to 160 seats, if you include Gujarat as well, that no, your water needs are not important, but sending water to Pakistan is very, very important. Think about politics 101. Which party would be daring enough, even at the state level, to say that no, we do not want water for our farmers or for our people or for our cities or for our industry, but we want water for Pakistan. This is where it becomes important to permanently alter our foreign policy towards Pakistan, which is sort of subject to the government in center. That dependency on the governments in the center must cease to exist, and this is where the canal project becomes very, very important. So finally, to sum it up, you're talking about 135 MAF water going to Pakistan every year from Indus, Jhelum and Chenab. You're talking about diverting 25% of that water, around 36 MAF, from Jhelum and Chenab through Punjab, Haryana to Delhi, Uttar Pradesh and Rajasthan. You're talking about cutting down Pakistan's supply by 25%, which will create inflation on the power front, which will hit their agri and their industrial economy. You're talking about addressing the water scarcity needs of these 5 states by at least 75%. And more importantly, you're talking about create an agri-economy of $1 trillion in the future, catering to NCR, which will be a $1 trillion economic zone, revamping the agri-economy of Punjab and Haryana, the de-desertification of Rajasthan perhaps, and immuning Western Uttar Pradesh from water scarcity 50 years down the lane. But most importantly, you're talking about permanently altering India's foreign policy with respect to Pakistan.